Warm welcome to our listeners, Witzenberg Motor Talk. Tonight we have the honour of speaking to one of the legends of South African rallying. And no, it's not a works driver, it's not one of the manufacturers involved yet, not directly in any case, but a little guy, and I'm saying that with all respect, possibly the shortest driver ever in the local series, but a man with a big heart and a great passion for rallying. And another thing we are starting tonight is a new co-host, Byron Hyde, has decided to focus on commentating at the Regularity racetrack, and he's joined Gary Fleming with second gear. So tonight it's also a warm welcome to our new co-host, a man with a great background in rallying himself, on which we will elaborate during the evening. But a warm welcome to you as well, Clint Lingerveld. But
thank you, Patrick.
Coming into hi, welcome. I hope and trust that we will have many an enjoyable evening on this program, and I think tonight is a good start.
Yes. No. Thanks, Patrick, and it's a real privilege to be part of your show. And I look forward to more shows with you. And I think tonight's going to be a great discussion with one of the legendary rally drivers over a few years. I won't say decades. It sounds
you're allowed to. He can live with it.
Yeah, but it's a true honor to have this discussion. Yeah, so thank you.
So, well, without further ado, let's introduce our guest. A warm welcome to you, all the way from KwaZulu-Natal, Tony Habigs.
Good evening, Patrick. Good evening, Clint. Thank you for having me.
Hi, Mr. Bull.
No, that's Tony, please, not Mr. Bull. Please. I feel old already.
Tony.
Well,
Tony, you go back a very long way in local motorsport. So we've got an hour to discuss a very cool and exciting career in rallying or in motorsport as such. But we'd like to start off by having you introduce yourself. Who is Tony Ball? Where do you come from? Where were you born? How did you get to actually taking an interest in the sport?
Okay, Patrick, I lived in Lorenzo Marques as a young boy, and I can vividly remember walking to the Polana hill climb as we left in 66, so I was about 10 years old. And I remember watching the total rally cars come up there on the Polana hill climb. And little did I know that in years to come, I would be passionate about the sport. But it started all because when I was at Morris Brothers in 1971, the one school teacher was a big person in the marshal group, and they asked us to come and marshal at Roy Hesketh Circuit. And we also were asked to marshal on the rallies. So that's how I started. And then I actually got involved with her husband, and I used to go and help him on his mini rally car and work on his car. And we did a few club rallies together. And marshalling in those days, you got sent into the middle of the bush with a pigeon clock and your marshal board. And I didn't have a car, so the chief marshal would drop me off. And then the sweet marshal would pick me up, and I'd sit in the middle of the bush in Greytown area with my Kodak lamp and my big shifting spanner in case I had to ward off any burglars. And I marshaled there, and the bug bit, and I navigated for a few years. And then I decided I'd had enough of working in other people's cars, and the quality wasn't great, and I thought I'd do it myself. So, yeah. And then it's been the passion since 1978 as far as driving and building my own car.
Building your own car. You are busy currently with car number 21.
That's correct. And I haven't lost I get such a kick out of doing it. I work on the car, and then I go and have one or two beers afterwards at the local pub, and I feel very pleased. It's almost like, I'm sure, what comrades runners have when they run a comrades and they get the endorphins. It's that the rallying does that for me.
Clint, I believe you will be listening very attentively to this because you've got a tendency to build a few cars yourself.
Yes. I've built a few cars, and I know exactly what Tony is explaining. but I actually have a few questions for Tony, because when I looked at his history, it's very interesting, because in terms of him building cars, he started off with some triple S's. He went through the Nissan Langleys. Then he ended up in the VW with the latest tech, and now he's back to the old school cars. So it begs the question: which of these cars over the years were of the best, and maybe give us some insight in terms of the driving style, of rear wheel drive to front wheel drive, and then also we share a similar kind of history in terms of um, coming through the ranks in terms of a team, building cars, then navigating, and then also driving. So there's also a special aspect that gives you as a driver insight in terms of what the navigator is going through, and then also what your team has to go through. So maybe if you can give us, I know I touched on 3 points at the same time, so
I'm
maybe start.
I'm
Yeah.
going to chip in there. I know exactly where you're going with this, and I'd like him to take that step by step, but I'd like him to start
Yes.
off
Yes.
in the
Exactly.
early days. First
Yes.
rally car, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay, I decided that I wanted to drive, and I realized that the Datsun Triple S was the most fantastic car for a privateer. And Nissan, you could get spares for it. A lot of people rally them, so you could pinch people's ideas. So I went with the Triple S. I bought an old rusted Triple S, and then I bought a good shell, and I transferred all the stuff over, and got the thing up to reasonable sort of speed. But I was actually quite ignorant. I didn't realize that in a rally car you had to have a low ratio diff, and the car seemed to go quite well, but it just didn't have the speed. And the one day I was talking to a chap called Bob Hardy. You may remember him from years back, and we were doing a Armstrong rally, one of those Drakensberg trials, regularity, and I said to him, this car feels good, but it just doesn't accelerate fast. He said, what diff have you got? And I said, what diff? The diff I've just in the same as came with the car. No, he says you need a low ratio diff. Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Now, if I'd had a family of motorsport people, they would have told me that right in the beginning, but I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So I then phoned Nissan, and I said, listen, have you got a diff for this car? And they said, yeah, sure. What do you want? What ratio? I said, well, I don't know. They said, well, got a 4.8 for you and $150, and we'll bring you down to the next rally. So I put that in, and suddenly I was about 20% faster. But that was another school, the biggest school fee of my life.
Yeah.
It's a low ratio diff. So that's how it started. And I wrote the Triple S off. I went out practicing the one night. I have to admit, I had 1 or 2 beers, and I stuck it into a ditch and wrote the thing off. So I had to take it home, and I thought I'd wake up in the morning and the car would be fine. It was just a bad dream. But unfortunately, it wasn't a bad dream, and I had to rebuild it. So, yeah. And then
Tony, you just mentioned you started off in the era when it was regularity rallies. Once again, just for the benefit of the listeners, there's a few out there that might not understand the concept. That's before it was flat out special stages. What was the main differences for you? You just said you just rolled the car, you destroyed the car. So you did go quickly as well somehow.
Okay, I actually did the regularity rallies in 1978 because I was navigating for a chap in a Ford Escort Piranha. So I didn't want to mess up entering rallies until 1979. But the regularity rallies, you were given a speed, and you had to, marshals would check you at certain points that you were driving it on time. So they were actually very difficult rallies to do, because you had to manage your speed, and your navigator had to give you time checks. It was quite a different way of rallying, and it was the way rallying was, particularly in the early 70s. We went to special stages when we realized that racing on public roads, because some of the speeds were quite high, and they realized that you have to go into closed roads with private properties, and then special stage rallying sort of took over after the 73 fuel crisis. But it is a very difficult form of rallying, and there were some long regularity rallies like the Armstrong Drakensberg trial, which went from Harrismith and back to Harrismith, about 600 kilometers through the night. And then we had the BP Swaziland rally, and they were actually as demanding because the speeds were quite high, and you were set a speed of, say, 70 k's an hour down Olifeus Hook when it was dirt road. So you had to be on the button a bit.
You've mentioned a few things now that we can touch on, and Clint mentioned it earlier as well. Fuel was cheap in those days, distances were much longer. An event would start and carry on for a couple of days, without any interruptions or sleep or anything. It's just long hauls on the road. The other element that you touched on, you mentioned you got a new diff and made a big difference in the car. But it was before the era of fancy suspensions and stuff. It was basically a standard car, just well prepared.
Yes.
Well, the fancy suspensions, right when I started, I got hold of a chap called Ted Garstang, who sold Bilsteins in South Africa, and he built the suspension legs for me. And I realized early on that you must spend the right sort of money on the right parts, and then the sport's actually much more fun. So I followed that route, and it worked for me.
You turned from navigator to driver. Now, there's two elements involved there as well. What did the drivers think of you as a navigator, and what did you think of swapping seats?
Well, I'm going to brag a little bit. The one chap in Natal, he had his first and only rally win with me because I navigated for him and the car broke down on an open section to Greytown, and I jumped out, and in my little torch I saw that the points had broken and didn't carry spare points. So I hitched a lift into Greytown. The refuel was actually at the Ford dealer, so I bought every set of points that a Ford Escort could have, and I got the lift back to the car, and I fitted the points, and I used a matchbox as a feeler gauge, and then we carried on in the rally. And in those days, you were allowed to become late without any penalty. You were allowed to be an hour late, and we were right at the back of the field. But of course, we then did the stages in the daylight, and the other guys did it in thick mist at 5 o'clock in the morning. And we actually won the rally, and we couldn't believe we'd won it. I mean, the car was quite a tatty Ford Escort, but he was a hell of a good driver. He's Roger Downard, and we had huge fun. And I like to believe that all the guys I navigated for felt I put maximum effort in, not only working on the car, but during the rally as well. I was passionate. I wanted a result. So, yeah.
You've got a habit of doing some incredible stage times. I know of two occasions, once in the Castrol Rally and once down here in the Cape, and we're jumping a bit now, but Clint, you'll appreciate this. This man won 2 stages overall on national championship rallies, genuinely won them, beating the likes of Serge and Sarl and those guys, but under unique circumstances, although the result never reflects that. It just says Tony Ball won the stage overall. Tony, can you elaborate on that?
I'm not. I don't fool myself that I'm this top driver that I can beat these guys. Okay, but the 2 reasons I won the stage is that I entered the Toyota dealer rally in the Cape in 1986, I think it was, and we entered late, so we started car 48, and all the guys there, when they realized I started behind them, they would say, clock in ahead of me, because we don't want you behind us. One of them was Cindy Harding's dad. She navigated for the guy, I can't remember his first name, Crossley, anyway. Dave Crossley, yeah. And they said, go ahead of me. And we then did one of the stages early morning in broad daylight, and everyone did it in thick mist at 4 o'clock. And we couldn't believe it when we got to the prize giving. We saw we actually won the stage overall. So there was a reason. It wasn't a fantastic driving skill. But the other one was the Castrol, where they did the final stages as a water splash at the Inverbarn Casino. And I decided, for whatever reason, I was going to take the water flat out because my car handled the water quite well. I had the air filter out the water flow. And I took the water splash flat out, and I won the stage by about 3 seconds. So yes, I did win the stage. I didn't back off with the water, so that's all it was about.
You got the bragging rights, so there's nothing to take
I have,
away
yes,
from
I
you.
do. Part of my DNA.
A few lessons to learn there, Clint. You mustn't always be unhappy with your position on the road.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's always a benefit, eh? And especially if your distributor is covered so the water can't get in.
Can I add one more story to that? Okay.
For sure.
Please do.
We did a Allowell North rally in 2002. And in the morning, I saw the weather, and I don't know, somebody said to me, put your mud tires on. And I've changed the mud tires. And of course, at that stage, the rally started in Allowell, and we then went to Maclear and then did the stages. But the service crew couldn't follow us. They had to go their own way. So we got to Maclear, and it was pouring with rain. And I looked around, and everyone else had dry tires on, and I had mud tires. And I thought, oh, I've made the wrong decision here. Until we got to the special stage, and it was thick, thick mud. And I sailed through the stage, and only Serge Damser and Jannie Habigs beat me. They were in works cars in dry tires. And I had everybody, including Herg and Fecken, coming to me and saying, can we buy your tires? Can we buy your tires? Because we couldn't see service crew for about 3 stages. So I was lying third on that rally after the first stage. So that was like another bragging show, you know. Yeah. That's half the fun, eh?
But you certainly know slouch behind the wheel. And that year, those years of experience you put to good use. Even though you might say you're not the fastest guy around, you were like a pesky little fly. They could never get rid of you. You were always there. And that's part of the secret to rallying as a privateer, is to get to the finish every time.
Exactly, you know, and it's just your pocket that takes a knock. You have to actually drive with a string attached from your toe to your wallet, because you can't just crash it all the time. Simple as that.
Well, so your own experience, Clint, I have to relate to this to Clint. Clint had a very interesting incident on rally. Him and his brother together in the Toyota. And I'll remember that for life. They came storming down to a spectator section. You can relate to. I'm actually going to let him tell the story. It was quite hilarious.
So what happened is, you know, as a navigator, we've previously done these rallies, so I knew the roads or the stages and that. And in my conquest, we took out we took out the modified engine, and I had a standard engine in, and we did it on the first pass, and it went absolutely faultless. And I thought the second pass, now come on, I'm gonna give it stick. And we came over the blind crest, and he called me. He said to me, 100 meters, acute 90 left. Yeah. And as I came over, I came to realize, yes, people in front, and I'm too fast, you know, to slow the car down. And I basically put my foot on the brake, and then the car just twitched, and then there was embankment, and we started to roll, I think 4 or 5 times through the air. There's photos, people's got photos about it. But maybe for Tony's benefit, my brother's got one leg, right? And so now we come to a stop, and we're hanging in the car, and we're lying on the side, and he's out before me. He went straight past me, unbuckled, and through the door and out over the car. So now, still hanging in the car, I could hear the noise of people, you know, as you were rolling. You can hear people screaming and being anxious and that. And as he jumped out, there was silence. I can still remember it to this day. And then eventually I got out, and then he hopped straight into the crowd, and the people started to scream again. They said, his leg is in the car, his leg is in the car. I said to them, no, calm down. He only has one leg, you know, it's been amputated, so just relax, it's fine. So eventually we rolled the car back onto his four wheels, checked the oil and everything is fine. We got in and we finished the stage. So I know it was quite a funny story for the competitors, but for the spectators it wasn't funny at the time.
And did he navigate for you again after that?
Yes, but it was never the same again.
I'm sure he wasn't. You know, maybe when you watch those old rally videos, Tony Pond on the one rally, he said, when you roll, the first thing you say is to your navigator is, "Are you all right?" And he either slaps you or grunts yes, and then we go, you know. But we've all been to that horrible time when you're upside down in your seatbelts.
No, for sure. No, for sure.
Vaughan Robertson coming onto the screen here with a few messages. So we'll have to touch on your own incidents and the funny incidents that you've had along the way. There must be quite a few of them.
Well, there's 608 rallies, and I've kept a little diary of each one. And there's a little note there. It's a sort of thing you don't always want to show someone. You know, like when I navigated for someone, if I thought he was a poopy driver, I would say that can't handle the car, or whatever the reason, or preparation's bad or something. And so there's these little private notes which I probably wouldn't want to show too many people.
Yeah.
But I was quite honest. If I drove like an idiot myself, I would actually write in my diary, you were off the pace, or you weren't focused, or you were distracted, or whatever. So I did keep it honest to myself as well.
Okay. So Patrick, do you want to go? Yeah, so I just want to take you just a little bit back. So we spoke about the triple S. Now, if I look at my notes here, you went through a stanza also, and then you went to the ex Hannes Grobler Langley. Now, I've got a question in terms of sorry, there's a noise here in terms of the Langley, because I've noticed that they've basically used the stanza floor pan. And it also says when you received it, it was the 1600, so it was a bit under power. So can you maybe take us through that time with that specific car, and then maybe we move on to the more newer cars, because coincidentally today I actually saw one of these Langleys are up for sale, but it's an ex track car, so it really intrigued me to find out what was the differences in these kind of cars and how much fun it was.
You know, Hannes Grobler, as you've had him on this show, I mean, he was a legend, a driver and a builder of cars himself. He was the true privateer when he started. And in 1983, 84, the Stanza was getting to the end of its run life, in terms of sales figures and that. And Nissan didn't want to rally a car that's not made anymore, obviously. So he took a Langley body and he grafted it onto a Stanza body floor pan. Yeah. And he used the car in 84 with a 24 valve, the fancy motor that they had, and he did quite well. I think he won the Allowell North Rally, but then end of the year they scrapped the car, and it had broken up quite a bit because the body shells weren't as strong as like the Stanza shells with the double skins and all that. And the car was lying there, and Chris de Witt from Nissan said to me, "Look, if you want this body, you can have it." I went up there and I loaded on a trailer. It was just a body shell. I brought it back to Durban, and I noticed that the motor mount, the engine mountings had been moved back, so the car was quite well balanced. So I put my 1600 in it, I rebuilt it, welded all the cracks and all the rest, and it did me well, but it was only a 1600, so it lacked a bit of power. But when on the tight, twisty forest, it was very competitive. I mean, I used to keep up with Glenn Gibbons in the Gulf on a twisty stage, but obviously the minute the roads opened up, they left me standing because it was a little bit heavy. But it was a good car to rally, and it took me a while to build it because it was in quite a poor shape. I mean, it had been used hard for a year, but it was a great car. And I won a Natal Championship in it, and then after that, obviously the car wasn't competitive, and that's when I went to Volkswagen Golfs.
So maybe that then takes us into the next phase of your rally career with VW, and so you went into the Mark II Golfs, right? And was those the Golfs with the side draft setup like Pierre Goos and them used to ride at that time?
Well, in 87, I realized that I wasn't going anywhere with the Langley anymore, and I decided that was because someone else, a chap called Louis Parsons, had bought a car from Jeff Mortimer Motorsport, a ready rally car Golf 2. So I phoned Jeff, and he said 25,000 rand. We'll build the car for you. I said, that's fantastic. And I sent him up my 45 side drafts, and they went down to PE. They got the car off the production line, drove it up to Joburg. They built it. It had the proper close ratio gearbox. It had Bilstein shocks. It came with 6 rims and tires, and it went like stink. It was the most fantastic car I've ever driven. I mean, I'd come from a privateer sort of car, and I went into basically what was a works car. And what was really fantastic is about a month after I bought the car, Jeff Mortimer phoned me and said, so he chatted a bit, and I said, "Oh, what can I do for you?" He said, "No, it's what I can do for you. Are you prepared to do the national rallies if we give you 8,000 rand towards your costs?" There was quite a lot of money in 88.
That time was a lot of money. Yeah.
And they helped me from that day on. It was not even a signed contract. It was a handshake and a phone call. And that started the relationship with Volkswagen. I stopped with them in 2007. So for 20 years, we rallied together basically on one phone call, and that's all. There was never any fancy contracts, and they were the most fantastic assistance, as were Nissan in our early days.
Okay.
Then you built a few historic rally cars, and lately you're busy with a very interesting 4x4 conquest. After tonight, you're going to have to consider a certain Gold 3 that Tony Ball built.
Yeah, this is my last rally car. I'm getting a little bit old here for this.
Yeah. I actually see we have a question here. There's a question from the audience is asking if Tony still have the Lancia. I need to pronounce this right.
Fulvia.
Fulvia, yeah.
Very definitely. I built the car as a classic, but unfortunately, it's got very low, small suspension travel, so it battles with the rough stuff. And I spent quite a bit of money, and I'm a bit reluctant to damage it. So it's pretty much put on the side for the sort of classic Polana rallies and that. Yeah, it's a lovely car to drive. And when we had muddy stages, the car was super competitive. It used to be very, very up on the speed of the 1600s, but it is a 1300. And yeah,
Okay.
I'm reluctant to damage it.
Tony, I'm gonna be a bit of a devil's advocate here. You are, as I said in the beginning, you stand up. You're not the tallest guy around. As we say in Afrikaans, klein mannetjie syndrome. The smallest guy always has to drive the most powerful rally car, the most powerful racing car. You always got this thing about having more power than anybody else. And you've had a few extremely powerful cars in your time. Yet, when you eventually decided to stop active rallying, you went and you bought a 1300 Fulvia Lancia. Somehow that doesn't really make sense. Where did that concept come from?
I've always really fancied those cars because I just thought they're such a small little car, and they did so much giant killing in the 70s and about 68 to 70. And I just decided to build one. Everyone wanted to know if it was 1600, but you can't get those motors easily. They are available overseas, but at huge money because they were only built for rallying. But the car handles very well, and it's got a fantastic cute factor. In fact, the one Guy Botcherell's mom, Heather Botcherell, came to me one day on a rally sprint, and she said, "I don't leave the spectator point until your car comes past because it's got the cute factor." So yeah, not the driver, eh? The car. The car's the driver's an ugly sod, but the car's cute. Yeah.
You put yourself on the spot now because you've got a cute car that handles very well, and you really made mistakes behind the wheel, but yet you managed to roll with the Lancia of all cars.
Yeah, I did. I organized the rally sprint in March last year, and I was busy. I was actually not focused on the job at hand of driving the car. I was sort of focusing on how the event was going and the marshals in position, all the rest. And I admit that my mind wasn't quite there. And the one corner I lifted off, and the car got away from me, and we rolled into the cane. But it had a roll cage that I bought from England when I built the car, and the sugar cane is nice and soft, so it wasn't actually that bad. It cost me about 20 grand to fix it, and I had a spare windscreen. The panel beater did a beautiful job. So yeah, it's a school fee. Yeah. What can you say?
It comes with the territory.
Completely. Yeah. Not easy when it happens. It's not easy to accept that, but you have to just move on. Yeah.
You always blame the Navigator first.
No, I couldn't blame the Navigator. That was the driver's fault. No. I navigated. So, if I made a mistake, I apologize. And if I drove and I made a mistake, I apologize. No, there's none of this blaming someone. You don't do that.
You've had a few scary incidents without a navigator. You managed to, take a diving course halfway through an event as well.
Yeah, it was an off-road race in the Wartburg area, and we came up onto a dam wall, and there wasn't much marking, and I hit the brakes, and the wheels locked up, and I flew off the dam wall into a slimes dam, and the car went completely underwater. Fortunately, it didn't go on its head, and I was lucky to just open the top and pile out, but the car was completely submerged. It took me about a month and a half to rebuild it, engine, gearbox, wiring, but it was a little bit scary because we were completely under the water, and I sort of started to get a bit edgy, and then I realized, hang on, calm down, unbuckle, don't worry about trying to, because I tried to take the helmet off, and then I realized with the gloves on you can't unclip it, so I just, get out the car while you can, and I got out, and it was a momentary scary moment, but you just deal with it.
You tried your hand at almost any form of motorsport. You were into off-road racing. You even tried your hand at a few endurance races. Um, you never had a real passion for the other categories but rallying. And you never really got into anything else like most of the drivers in South Africa tend to do. They go into circuit racing for a while. They go into off-road racing for a while. You were always true to rallying.
Completely. One thing that's appealed to me most about the rallying is the fact that you're on, in the old days, untested roads. You've never seen the road before. You've got to make a snap decision on where the corner goes. You've got to know how fast to drive your car. You can't kill it on a long event like the Castrol. I mean, the Castrol rallies were 1,200 kilometers of special stages when I first started. They went down to about 700, but it was still a long event. So you had to pace yourself, and it was a really test of endurance. And money played a part, but not as big a part as in track racing, because with rallying, it's about looking after your car and keeping it all together. That's why I found it more demanding.
Another topic I have to touch on, when we speak to the likes of Sarel and Hannes and Fitzwanapur and those guys, and you ask them who were their greatest competitors, it always comes from a small group of people. But you as a privateer, you faced everybody from the top to the bottom. Who did you consider over the years to be your toughest opponent?
There's no question about that. Trott van der Walt. Trott built his car in his garage in the cold Pretoria weather at night, and he always finished rallies. We had some good dices. I think he beat me more than I beat him, but it was really I respected Trott because he never changed, and he was always friendly, and we had some good dices, and we had a lot of respect for each other. I would say he was my most competitive sort of opponent. I had good dices with Leon Botha when he had the 16-valve Golf. We had some good dices there too. Yeah, no, there are a few, but Trott stands out most for me.
And of course, now that's swinging it a little bit the other way. Which of the different categories did you enjoy the most? You were in many classes over the years. You had the privilege to do the rear-wheel drive era, you did the front-wheel drive era, and virtually all the capacity classes. Were there ever a favorite, or you simply enjoyed every single one of them?
I have to say that when I bought Jeff Sanders a 16-valve Golf in 92, and to drive that car was a simple one word: orgasmic. It was the most fantastic car to drive. I actually have to tell you that I did win one other stage, by the way. You've left one out. At Alexandra Park in about 96, I won the stage around there, the tarmac stage. Look, in fairness, I didn't know the park well. I did rally sprints there, so I knew exactly where the corners were. But that car on tar was sheer orgasmic to drive on slicks, because it put all the power down on the ground. Whereas on the dirt, it wheel spun, and you wasted your time chewing up the tires. But on the tar, that thing was just too fantastic. And at night, in the trees with the spotlights on and the slicks, oh no, that sticks in my mind, I have to say. No question.
I can vouch for that, because I visited you at one stage and ended up sitting in the spare wheel well on the back going through Alexander Park, which was quite an interesting experience.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I forgot that. No, it was a lovely experience. Yeah.
Tony, now events-wise, the Castrol Rally was legendary. I don't think anything really compares to that. But Natal has got possibly the most beautiful stages you can think of in rally. Call it the green hill, call it what you want. But going into that sugar cane is quite intimidating if you get there for the first time, because you don't appreciate how fast the guys really go in there until you're actually there as a competitor and experience it for yourself.
Now, I'll never forget that Frans Boshoff was interviewed on SABC TV years back, and he said, because he was leading the rally with Sorrel, obviously, in the Quattro, and he said driving in Natal is very difficult because you're in a tunnel vision, and you don't actually, you don't know where the road is going, because you've got these walls of sugarcane. And he admitted that it was the hardest roads to drive on. I would say the sugarcane, and then the forests like the Sabi forests, some of the West Bank Rally forests, the Castro forests. Those are all like really demanding roads, and you couldn't take your eye off the road for a second. Whereas I found the mealie fields horribly boring because it was just power and dead straight roads. I didn't enjoy them from the first day I ever did them. So to me, the cane roads, the forest roads, and also the Allowell North mountain passes, they were really heart-stopping stuff. Jabez Pass going downhill. Oy, oy, oy.
Well, I'm going to ask you to make that comparison, because the Allowell North Rally, the sheer drops on the mountains was rather intimidating. Although the good thing was that when you had speed, you had time to look and see where you could have fallen 3 days. But the comparison between that and the high speed from the cane fields, or Kiro down on the Castro Rally, if it goes wrong, it goes horribly wrong.
Oh yeah, I had a navigator on the one Stanic Mountain trial, and he kept shouting at me going down Jabez Pass, and he said, "Be careful, be careful." I said, "I don't want to go down the mountain any more than you do, so relax." And of course, there were no pace notes in those days, so the guy, he would give you an instruction, then nothing for like 8 kilometers, maybe a ignore gate on left or something. So it was quite nerve-wracking. Whereas when you pace note navigator, as I did the Allowell Rally with Craig Trott, you're calling the notes all the time, so you're not really focusing on the drop. But when you're sitting there just watching the scenery, yeah.
Yeah. So how many navigators did you go through, Tony, through your years?
I think about 35 or so. Yeah.
Is there any specific reason for that?
Not really. Just people were available to navigate, then they couldn't navigate anymore. I didn't fire. I think I'd only fired 1 or 2 because the interest wasn't there. And I was a bit grumpy in that I put a lot of effort in, and I expected my navigator to just show me the same sort of effort.
The ratio is very fair, Clint. If you go and look at his stats, he actually makes a statement that he sat next to 35 drivers and he had 36 navigators. So, yeah, it's a fair fight there.
Yeah.
Tony,
I have to say the lady navigators that I had were unbelievable. I mean, Ronelle Dahms, Marty Olivier, Cherry Saunders, Irma Kutza. They were fantastic. We got on well in the car. We had a good laugh. We really enjoyed ourselves. And I mean, they gave me a lot of experience. I mean, I'll give you a quick story. The one West Bank Rally, we broke a fan belt in the stage, and I jumped out the car now to change the fan belt. And Ronelle got out, and she had a route schedule in her hand, and she said, "Turn on the headlights." I said, "No, we're going to, well, why do we want the headlights on?" She said, "Watch." And I turned the headlights on, and she held the route schedule in front of the headlights, and the light reflected back into the engine compartment, so I could see what I was doing. So, you can learn something from somebody all the time. The other person I have to say that made a big difference to my life was Martin Butter. We did a rally in the mud in 84 or 86, I can't remember, Sabi, and it was muddy as hell. And he taught me to drive in the mud. From that day on, I was fine in the mud. I was absolutely at home. Whereas before that, I was nervous. And he was shitting me out all the time. Sorry about the language. Right through the rally. Go, go, go. Up another gear. Up another gear. And I said, "It's slippery." He said, "Go another gear." And I listened to him. And I tell you what, it changed my whole driving style. So, Martin Butter, I've told you often enough that you made a big difference to my driving. And yeah. I'm happy to acknowledge the input that the various people did,
Well, once again, you've now given navigators credit, you've given drivers credit. I know as a privateer, you do most of the preparation in your car yourself. You built it yourself. You understood those cars inside out. But there must be somebody along the way over these many years that stand in support. In other words, part of your service crew. That made a difference to you as well. Well,
you remember Tony Babb used to navigate for me. Now, he was my mechanic at Bulwer Park Service Station. He did a lot of the preparation on the car. And he clever guy, very methodical, not so hot on making a plan in the bush because his workmanship was of a high standard. So he wasn't a Boer Makaplan type guy. Well, he's an Englishman, so he's hardly a Boer. But anyway, he was fantastic. On the rallies, he was huge support. And the other person I also have to thank is a guy called Jimmy Dewar, because he came on rallies with me, and he's a big, strong guy, and he could change those gearboxes in that 16 valve easily with one hand. Okay, he probably wouldn't be able to do it right now, but he was a very, very important part of my crew. And we had good fun. We used to finish the rally and go out for supper and have a good laugh. And I used to see it with Serge Damso. He looked after his team. He took them to supper, and he got them on his side. So when the chips were down, that crew will do anything for him, as we saw with Serge. So the service crew is as important, and you must look after them. I even remember making egg sandwiches for my crew and buying chickens on the road for them, so we could eat. And I looked after them because they without them, you're nothing. It's as simple as that.
So,
as a works driver, the difference between you and a totally works driver or a professional is you did the works and then you got to drive. But the point I'm trying to make is you spend a lot of time on the road traveling with your crew instead of flying to an event. You've had some mishaps along the way, sometimes more challenging getting to the start and coming back from an event.
In 2001, we had a head-on crash just outside Colesberg. The guy fell asleep and he came onto my side of the road. And I have to say that Marty Olafia probably saved our lives, because I wasn't looking at the headlights, obviously, you don't do it at night. And she screamed and she said, watch out, watch out. And this car was coming towards us. So I pulled the van to the left and he hit the van on the right-hand side and bounced down the thing. And fortunately, because the Mercedes is a big, strong bus, and he didn't hit us head-on, as in head-on. It was a glancing blow. Okay, we rolled, the trailer came off the back of the van. He rolled into the bush. Unfortunately, part of the trailer stuck him in the guts, and he passed away about 2 weeks later. But driving to the rally, you got to know your crew well, and you built the bond. It was stopping for breakfast together, and it's without them, you're nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So talking about special bonds and VW and also service crew, I've noticed also that you were part of Jannie's crew when he had the Ford Fiesta. So again, you moved from driver to being, let's call it, part of service crew, and then obviously I have a good relationship with one of the other legends inside of our rally fraternity in South Africa. Maybe take us through that.
Well, Jannie started rallying in 1980. I'd been around for about, I'd been rallying for 8 years by then. I'd driven for a couple of years. And he asked me if I'd come out for a drive with him and help him with some tips. And after about 2 kilometers, I said, I can teach you nothing. I said, you know exactly what to do there. And I could see, I'd navigated for people, so I knew who could drive and who couldn't. And he was unbelievable car control. And I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, this man is going to be a multiple SA champion. And she said to her, oh, why are you talking yourself down? I said, I'm not talking myself down. He has got that natural built-in talent, and he will go places. In 2002, I think it was. No, not 2002. 2012. I was his team coordinator, not his team manager. I just coordinated everything. And one of my jobs was to cook him a steak. So when he came in to eat, he had his own private steak. So it was a big joke in the service park. Baliki was the chef, But that's what he wanted. And Jannie, it's almost like that thing where they say, if the woman ain't happy, the home ain't happy. Well, if the driver isn't happy, the team's not happy. So I coordinated stuff for him, and he knew what he wanted to do. He was the expert on the mapping and downloading the stuff. I'm not the technical guy, but I made everything as easily possible as I could. So it was a lovely year. I enjoyed it, and his commitment was something else. A fantastic driver, really. Oh. And he's still a very good friend of mine. We chat a lot.
He was always the guy that looked the most out of control in a rally. With all respect, his car was always, it looked very loose. I don't know whether that came from the rear-wheel drive era with him with the Skyline, where he was truly spectacular. But Jannie always drove a car that looked like it wasn't as well set on the road as the other guys. Yet he seemed to be entirely in control and happy with it.
I think that came from the Skyline days. There's about 4 people that really drove a Skyline well. Hannes, Cassie, Jannie, and also Cliffy Blackman from Natal. He was pretty good in a Skyline too. But there was just a talent of note in those things. But funny, Jannie never did very well on tar stages because he was too sideways. You might remember that he was spectacular, but he didn't have the times there because tar, as you know, is about neatness. You know.
So this is exactly a point that I wanted to touch on. So I know you basically drove the Golf 4 that used to be Jannie's car, I believe.
That's right. Yeah.
So, but here's something that you need to clear up for our rallyist spectators in the Western Cape, because I was part of a debate or a discussion a few months back. So the debate went around the kit car that came in from Germany, whether it was
left-hand drive.
Yeah, how long the car stayed here, whether it was built in South Africa, a bit of history around the kit car, and when it left, because there was debate to say that the car is still in the museum, or Jannie owns it. Just give us some insight into that.
No, the car Jannie bought was an ex-Enzo Kun car, and he lent it to me in 2005 to use until I got the works car. But it had a hard life, and I had to do quite a bit of work on it. One of the things I found out when I got it, that it seemed to lack a bit of power, and I eventually poked around under the dashboard, and I found out that the wiring to the map sensor had no map sensor. So I eventually put a map sensor in, and I mean, we all know that fuel injection, that's a critical component. And it was quite funny that the one PE rally, Jannie had fallen out, and I was obviously behind him on the road. And as I was coming up the hill, he said to Douglas, "Whose car is that? I don't recognize that sound." And I came around the corner, and he said, "That's my car." He said, "I've never heard my car sound like that." I said, "No, well, I've fixed the map sensor." So, I did quite a bit of work on the car, and it was tired. It let me down quite a few times. So, yeah, it was the kit car. I never had much knowledge about it, but I know it was left-hand drive, and they changed it over for Jannie.
Okay, but it's no longer in South Africa, eh?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't be quoted on that, but I don't think so. No.
Okay.
But that Golf 4 was a wonderful car. Hey? Oof.
A few names have come up as viewers, Andrew Heiner, Abdul Sayed, and Johan Strydom asked for a question in asking that how much support did you get from Volkswagen? Did he have a budget or everything out of his own pocket?
Okay. VW, every year they phone me beginning of the year and say, "Okay, we're giving you so much this year." It varies to the 60,000, 80,000. And, but the most amazing part was that during the year I'd phone them and say, "Okay, how much have I got left?" And they said, "Don't worry, we'll just carry on, just draw what you need." And, it was a unbelievable relationship. And then one year we had Sasol sponsorship, and then we got a lot of petrol from BP. So I paid basically things like entry fee, hotel accommodation, except for the 1 year when we had Holiday Inn stuff. I paid a lot of it out of my own pocket, but Volkswagen used to send me the spares. And when I had the works car, they would overhaul the motor and the gearbox. So it was a very fluid amount. It wasn't fixed, and they never said, "Okay, now you owe us so much." The only I had a problem with gearboxes in 92, 93, 94, and eventually I said to Andre van der Walt, I can't rally this car with this gearbox every rally breaking. So he said, "Well, we can sell you a Andre Fauvet gearbox, which is a straight cut gearbox, but he said you got to buy it." So I sold an insurance policy and I bought it. It was 35,000 Rand in those days, and that was the most fantastic purchase I ever made. It never let me down. I got it from them, installed it, and I never fell out of the gearbox problem after that. So, it's the old thing. You just got to invest in the right stuff, and then that's half the battle.
And the benefit to the manufacturer over all these years of you being there as a privateer is points towards the manufacturer's championship. That was big in the South African Rally Championship. There's a few things I miss in the modern era of rallying. In the past, when you went on an event and the results came out, you had a team award. You had the specific club, PMC or SEC or whoever, the top 3 cars from that club would win the team award. The other element that I felt that sort of fell by the wayside is points towards the manufacturer's award. It was great, the rivalry between Ford, Volkswagen, and Toyota and Nissan for many years. Nissan romped away with the manufacturer's award for quite a few years, and then Toyota became the team to beat. But it was great to see the individual manufacturers going head to head for a championship in their own right. And in the days of the dealer team, you saw the value of that because each manufacturer would be represented in each of the capacity classes. It's something that you miss in the modern era of motorsport.
Absolutely, definitely. You know, in the early days, Nissan used to give you money for points. If you got them 20 points or whatever, they gave, I can't remember what it was now. It was about 200 Rand a point. But I've still got the photocopies of the checks that they suddenly would arrive in the post. Well done for your result on this rally. There's a check towards your expenses. And then I've got quite a few letters from VW and Nissan saying thank you for your contribution to the manufacturer's team award. So it meant a lot to me there, you know, to be part of the team. You know, you belonged to somebody. It's very important.
Danny, you concentrated your efforts into the national championship, but you never ignored what's happening at regional level either. You're one of the backbone guys in Natal. And rallying, like anywhere else, has got its ups and downs. But the local series and the local enthusiasm still very strong rallying in your area.
You know, it's struggled a bit now, particularly with the COVID thing. And you know, I think the youngsters today don't have the passion for rallying like they used to have. You know, in the old days, young guys always used to work on their cars. Today, they don't really work on their cars much. But I had a lot of fun. I organised a lot of rallies in my time. I did my first rally in 1976, and I was 21 years old. I organised a rally that was sponsored by Valvoline, and I managed to keep their sponsorship many years as a regional rally. And then I got involved in the Mintex rally, and I did organise their rally for a few years, and it was a huge success for many years. They used it as a promotional day, like a golf day with their clients and that. So I've done my bit for keeping the rallying going, and I had a lot of fun organising. I mean, I met stages all over Natal. I met farmers, and I had a lot of fun from putting on events that guys would come to you after and say, yo, that was a lovely rally. We really enjoyed it. And, you know, that's what you do it for. Yeah. But I probably organised about 35 rallies in my life now.
Yeah. I think one of the
big rallies... Again, same 35.
Yeah, one of the big rallies in Durban was the Zulu Rally. Do you maybe want to take us through that? Because there was a lot of international exposure and it was a great event.
You know, when they first started talking about that rally, a chap called Adrian Stafford came out from Aussie, and they asked me to take him around and just show him the sort of areas where the rallies take place. And he wanted to use the Thousand Hills area. And I said to him, you know, it's a bit tricky there because there's, you know, a lot of people living right on the edge of the road. There's animals, there's young children. Not really a great, from a security point of view or safety point of view. And as it happened, when they did organize the rally on that area, they had to cancel stages because you just couldn't stop the traffic on the road. It was too dangerous. But it's a pity because, you know, they were very good stages, but they had this thing that they wanted it, you know, to reflect the terrain of Natal and the rolling hills of the Thousand Hills. But, you know, it just didn't actually take off. It's a pity. And it was long distances, and the idea of a service park in Durban, which you're rallying sort of 60, 80 k's away, it doesn't really work, you know. It sounds lovely, but in principle, it doesn't work.
Yeah. So I remember one of the things that stood out for us when we won the event was Alistair McRae. he rocked up with
Mitsubishi,
with the Evo.
Yeah.
And there was teams from Africa with a horse and trailer, and they rocked up with a rental van and a few tires, and he clapped everybody. And that was really something else.
Yeah, he was pretty good, but not obviously in the same league as his brother. You know.
Yes, yeah, no, for sure.
But we had a lot of guys coming down from Zambia, and guys like Satwan Singh, and a lot of Zimbabwe guys. I've forgotten some of their names now. I mean, Billy Rotenbach came one year. So we had when it was around at the Africa Championship, it was quite well supported.
So I think we're heading into a new era where the Safari Rally returns to the WRC. That's possibly the biggest and greatest rally ever on the African continent. And it's fantastic to see it return now. Hopefully the team and myself hope to speak to the organisers soon and lead into the modern era of the Safari Rally. You never had any desire to compete internationally as such?
Obviously, the problem was in the apartheid years, you weren't allowed to go to Kenya and that. I remember one of the guys, Alan Moore or Alan Durham, who used to work for Volkswagen. He had to fly up to take some spares to the Audi team, and he'd wrapped some camshaft in the Citizen newspaper. And he said when he opened this thing at the airport, they said, "Where did you get this newspaper from?" He said, "I don't know," because they suspected he was from South Africa. But I've got the safari book that's written pictures and articles written by John Davenport, Reinhard Klein, who takes all the photos, and Helmut Daimel, who does the videos. That is like a Bible. It's got the entry lists, it's got the results, it's got a summary of each year, who the main teams were. I refer to that book often because I'm on the Safari fan page. And that was just another rally of note and affordable in those days. You took a standard car, you put a few things on it, and you rallied it.
Well, I know Mr. Ball in the Dell building a 180 Datsun now that could well fit into the classic side of the Safari Rally, and there's nothing restricting you from going there anymore.
Well, I probably have to sell my house to do that, but I'm making a replica of the Tony 4 car, a look-alike, not a perfect replica, but a sort of, when you look at it, it'll remind you of that car that Tony 4 won the 73 total with Franz Boschoff. So, and I've got pictures of Ewald van Bergen driving that thing on a test in that era, 73, 74. And when I visited Ewald last year, or no, the year before, and I spent a day with him, I showed him the pictures of the car, and it was quite nostalgic for him.
We have a question here. Sorry, Patrick. We have a question here from Vogan. I think he's one of your neighbors, eh?
Oh, yeah, no, we've diced together. He had his Escort and I had my Lancia.
Yeah, I actually got one of his Escort. So
okay.
Yeah, so he's asking, what do you think of the modern era of rallying at the moment?
We have to get the costs down, that's the biggest problem. I mean, in years gone by, you could take an Escort, make a few modifications, do a rally, and you still could have quite a bit of fun, triple S's and all that. But the costs have got almost ridiculous now. I mean, you spend so much money on the fancy cars. We need to almost go back to basics a bit. But of course, that's probably not going to happen. I mean, most people don't want to drive an old Golf or an old Datsun, But it's affordable. You just want to have fun.
Yes.
It's not just the competing side of it. I think we've got a serious problem in South Africa with respect to the official side as well. And I say this with all respect to those who have done wonderful work in the past, like Willie Duplessis, Robert Moore, Paul Bright, all those guys.
Dieter Koch, Dave McGregor.
Absolutely, but they're all getting old. Those are the guys that are retiring now. And sadly, I don't see too much of the new era or the youngsters stepping up to take over as officials. And without proper officials, rallying cannot work. It's logistically possibly the biggest nightmare in motorsport to organize. It's not an easy thing to organize. And it's very, very important to have it well organized because of the many elements that could become a risk factor on an event. Your view on that?
I think we've got everything way too complicated now. I mean, I organized a rally in 1976. I didn't have a clerk of course license. I made sure I had my farmers on my side. I followed all the right common sense rules, making sure he gave me permission, making sure the roads were closed, all that stuff. We've almost got too health and safety orientated, and there's too many crossing the T's, dotting the I's now. And I'll say it publicly, Motorsport South Africa has forgotten that they exist because of people giving their time for free. I mean, I can't even think of how many hours I put into rallies, but I had fun doing it. But when you not appreciate it, that sort of makes you lose interest a bit. And they need to keep it as simple as possible. To organize a rally today, you've got this fancy safety plan and you've got something else. And, it's the administration. It's pretty much the same as when I had my petrol station. The administration and the paperwork just got way too much. It was a nightmare running a business. You had all the different legal things you had to comply with. And I think the same as with rallying.
Yeah.
It was awesome to see up to 20 S2000 cars in the National Rally Championship. Then the money disappeared, the manufacturers disappeared, the sponsors disappeared. Leaving National Rally in a bit of a turmoil, to put it mildly. Today's championship, I'm sorry to say, is not terribly convincing, and I'm not taking anything away from the likes of Guy Botterill, who I think is a brilliant driver and a lovely ambassador for the sport. But you need numbers to make a championship. And Desmond Tim has made quite a good comment here in the sense of, instead of going for the longer sort of endurance type events, the modern era has changed in any case. The pace notes, it's a gravel race. You know the road before you go over it. So why not concentrate on a few very good rally sprints and make a championship from that as a foundation to build back to proper rallies again? And you can even take that on a national basis.
I personally am not a fan of pace notes because I was criticised them in '95 when they first brought them out. I said, it's a cost factor. Now you've got to go up 2 days before the rally. I also believe that a lot of the farmers were not happy to have you driving over the roads for 2 or 3 days before the day of the rally. They're happy to have you there, but they don't want you there all the time. And there's a cost factor. So I'm not a pace note fan. I just found it took away a little bit of the rallying. And Jimmy McRae said on one rally in the Circuit of Ireland, or Manx Rally on TV, he said the people say it makes it safer. He says no. He says if you have an accident, it's just a bigger one. So yeah, because you're just going at you think you know the road and you don't. There's also the thing, of course, where if your navigator makes a wrong call and you're a privateer and you roll your car and they say what bola makisis, then it's quite sore. I mean, Marty Olivier did pace notes with me on the Allowell Rally, but we didn't do the notes. She used someone else's notes. And I distinctly remember she called crest flat, and then she didn't add into tight right. As I went over the crest, there was a tight right. And I said, Marty, throw those things away because we're going to have a huge accident. We'll just drive according to what I see. So it wasn't her fault really, because we didn't check the notes, but we didn't have the right routine of reading them. And it was scary. So I'm not a great fan of pace notes.
Nice comparison to make there, Tony. You're a man of much experience. So please relate your experience in the sense that how long did it take you to actually trust the navigator? You looked all pace notes before you could actually take a genuine, flat-out blind race for total commitment. I think that's the most difficult instruction for a driver to actually, for both in the car, to truly believe that road is straight on the other side. I do remember Jeff Mortimer following telephone
Allowell North.
on the Allowell Rally and all the
Quattro was bola makisis, yeah.
So put yourself in that seat and tell us what your experience is of a blind race straight. And did you ever read telephone polls and stuff to sort of gain a few seconds?
I remember navigating for Craig Trott in 2008, I think it was, in his A6, and I'd lost my place on the notes somewhere in Allowell North. And as we came up to the rise, I shouted at him, I said, I'm off the notes, I don't know where the road goes. And he cucked me out. And I said, Craig, we're leading the class, there's no one left in A6. What did you want me to do? I said, we've lost maybe 2-3 seconds, maybe. Because I said, back off, I don't know where we're going, and I don't know where the road goes. And I said, stop getting excited. I said, what did you want me to do? Tell you flat out and we go over the hill and it's not. So, I said, we're so far ahead, it's not a problem. So calm down. But, I was petrified of calling a blind race incorrectly. Because if the guy crashes his car, does he turn around to you and say, well, you buggered it up for me? So, yeah. If I drove the road, like we do on rally sprints here, then I'm happy if the guy says to me flat, whatever. But unless I've driven the road, I don't have that confidence, I have to say.
Yeah. So take us through some of the dices when you sat for Craig Trott and versus Etienne Lawrence, because for me that was a very interesting era, with the Conquest, and then Craig Trott was also in A6.
We never raced against Etienne in A6. By then he'd moved on to other classes. He was in the Fiesta.
Okay.
But we had some nice dices in A6. Craig was a very, very good driver. His preparation was top drawer. He's hardly ever broke down. And we got on well in the car, and we won the championship fairly comfortably. Yeah, I do remember in Port Elizabeth in that year, I used to finish the rally, go straight to the scorer's room, and check that the times they had for me matched what I had. So I was happy with my total penalty, and off I went. Now I could relax, have a beer, go to prize giving. And there was a chap called Stefan Wilken in a polo, and he beat us on the rally by about 3 or 4 seconds. But he didn't go back to the scoring room, or his navigator didn't, and check. And then when the results came out, we saw, oh, we'd won the rally. Okay, that's fine. And I looked around for him, and I didn't see him. And he arrived after the 30 minutes up.
Yeah.
And he was obviously complained, and the organisers went to change. I said, no, the times, you had half an hour to protest, and you didn't check. So we have to apply the rules. And he was very upset, and I had to fight a bit with MSA on that one. But I said, the navigator, the job's not over until those times are done. So, yeah, but he was quite a difficult competitor. He was fast. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. We have a question here to Tony. If there's anything that you would do over again, what is it that you would change? And also, which cars in South Africa and which stage would you choose, basically, maybe to go out for, to have a jewel maybe again?
I have to say the 16-valve Golf was fantastic to drive. I think the sugarcane stages were always the best because they were so slippery, and I lost count the number of times we had Transvaal visitors coming down, and they're going like hell, and they don't realize that surface has got no grip, and they end up in the bush. So those are probably the most testing stages in the country, the sugarcane stages. And then just to confirm that's the stage I rolled on. So I speak from experience. I was never caught out on that stage until last year. Well, maybe I was once or twice, but not seriously. But it caught me out badly in the Lancia. But yeah,
and I can't help
you're never too old to crash.
No, but I can't help rubbing it in. It's also in the 1300.
Yeah, but it was fun.
And then another question we have here is, do you think that works cars or manufacturers will come back to SA Rally?
I'd like to believe that, but not in the current climate. When you rallied a car that was off the line, and Toyota would build a Conquest and they'd just leave out the sound deadening, and then they pull it off the line and do some extra welding. That's affordable rallying. This is where they build these really fancy cars, which, if you look, they actually all look the same, really. The overseas WRC cars. It's too expensive. I just don't believe that it's justified. That's why the Safari Rally for me was a fantastic event, because you had the Peugeot 504s, and the guys brought escorts, and it was just an affordable form of rally. I think that's our problem, is the cost.
Yeah, so I just want to add something on that point, and I know Patrick and I we joke about tech. So there's a program that's actually launched through the FIA that MSA has embraced also, especially for the younger viewers. I think it's from 17 to 26, where you can basically go onto a simulator. They will basically look at your times. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 different facets. They will have a gymkhana session. There will be a simulator racing. So there's 3 different points of entry into the program. And then ultimately at the end, towards the end of the year, they will select a few of the younger guys between that age bracket. And then it will go back into an African pool. And then hopefully whoever successful, they will go compete overseas. So I just want to add that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and I think it's very positive, because also you don't really need to have a fork out a couple of $100,000 to buy a competitive car. If you have a PlayStation or a simulator rig at home, then you have access to this kind of channel into the international racing, which I think it's a great initiative.
I hear what you're saying there, but there's nothing that replaces having to drive that car on the dirt with his tails sticking in.
No, for sure. For sure.
And also, when you build a car yourself, it's a different ball game. Excuse the pun, because it's just you're paying for it yourself.
Yeah.
Every bump and every ditch and yeah. But
Maybe it's got something to do with our age, but I've got a different point of view as to how to repair rallying in South Africa, in the sense that you come from an era where you had the likes of Hannes Kobler taking a very standard-looking Langley and turning it into a rally monster with a 2.8 motor in it, or whatever the case might be. Or taking a Skyline that on paper shouldn't have been a rally car. It's too big, it's too heavy, it's everything a rally car shouldn't be, yet it became an icon in rally. That initiative was removed when we had this drive to go FIA spec on rally cars.
Exactly.
If you can give some of that back to the sport, in other words, get another Hannes Grobler who's got some initiative and be creative and build a very efficient rally car for much less money, but he uses his brains to build an interesting car. There was nothing wrong with seeing Hannes in a Langley or a fast Toyota liftback like Owen Ashley used to build with those 2.8s.
The six-cylinder motor.
Incredibly nice cars to look at and hear and see in action. Surely there must be some scope, even in the modern era, to take these cars and build something of that nature and put a couple under each manufacturer's banner into a rally and create that vibe again. It's not just the driver and the navigator. You have to have the tech guy or the mechanics to be creative and build something of that nature. There's a lot of guys around building cars at home. But it got to a stage where people said, they don't want to be Hoenerhoff at rallies. It's wrong. They don't have to be a Hoenerhoff. You yourself know what it's like to build a car. You take pride in building a maybe not so fancy car, but it's certainly nothing to be embarrassed about when you take it out on the stage. And maybe that's an element that should be considered put back into the South African form of rallying.
I remember the best years were from 89 to 95 when we had A, B, C, D. You had a profile or a silhouette type, but you had a lot of parameters that you had to work through. Put it this way, it was very wide, and that was probably the best rallying out because you could be creative at a reasonable cost. And then we went to this FIA thing. That actually spoilt it all because we had ridiculous rules. I mean, I can remember, full respect to Jerry Bailey, he was a scrutineer, but I remember him wanting to penalise me because the disc on my car was 0.2 of a millimetre thinner than it should be, and some silly rules like that. And I just said, I mean, one of the things I complained was that the exhausts in the modern car face downwards. And I went to the Rally Commission and I said, this is the most ridiculous rule I've ever seen because it just creates a dust cloud for the marshals. And not just when the car's pulling away, when the wheels spin, but when you're sitting idling and revving. And I said, this is a stupid rule. We just have the exhaust go out straight, and things like that, where the rule overruled common sense, actually. So, yeah.
It would also be fair to say that, consistency in the rules is also very important. In other words, what I'm trying to say by that, when you start off in the beginning of the year with a set of rules, don't go fiddling in that rule book before the next year. In other words, it must remain consistent. And whether you like people, like scrutineers or not, I give Jerry Bailey a tip of my hat because he was a difficult scrutineer. But I honestly believe he was a very fair man in what he did. And he was possibly the most consistent guy in the application of the technical rules.
I remember him stopping me on a Sabi rally, and I'd undone my seatbelts. And he pulled me over in some little back road near Sabi somewhere, and he said, your seatbelts are off, and they fined me $500. But you know what? He had a job to do, and I didn't get across to him. I mean, I shouldn't have taken my belts off, but I did, and he said, no, you're allowed to do that, and he zapped me. So I paid the fine and just smiled. But he was very fair, and he put a lot of effort into actually scrutineering, and so he gave up a lot of his time for that.
It's to a certain degree, and people probably want to knock me a lot behind the head for this, but it's the little things I find irritating. When you start off with something simple, like the numbers on the car, it's supposed to be a consistent color, a consistent size, and placed in consistent places. Yet if you go on any event these days, very few cars comply to that. And that to me is where it starts going wrong. If you can't do the simple things right, how are you going to do the big things right?
Well, that's. I think we just got too many rules. We need to simplify it. But it's a tricky one because you have to have rules, but it just seems to me too many rules, just like running a business.
But
The only rule you want, only rule Tony Ball wants is a green light and a pass flying fully stop now.
But you see that's exactly the point there, Tony, is that if you look at rallying and running a team and competing, it is a business because exactly in terms of the manufacturing, if you talk fondly about the days when things were good, and I can remember also when we ran Toyotas and that also you could go to the factories and that, but those were times when money wasn't an issue and it's a numbers game. So that's where the backbone support came from, because I can distinctly remember the guys, the factory teams where you could get second-hand tires from that get passed on to the regional guys. The same with parts also. Mr. Wamiat, that was one of the guys that really supported those kind of initiatives. So unfortunately today there is no such initiative. So it really comes out of your bread and butter, Kitty.
Housekeeping money.
Yeah, housekeeping money. So if you look at the bigger scheme of things, to run a regional in the Western Cape, for example, is nothing less between 40 to 50 grand, and that would come out of a club's coffer. And most of the guys that are competitors is the guys that basically run the clubs also. So you have additional cost on top of that to go and compete also. So like you said, it's really a business and it's a numbers game. So I know we're all passionate about it, but I think under the trying times at the moment, we need to look at ways of carrying on in a manner that we still make it sustainable and safe.
Well, just what you said, in the days when the manufacturers were involved, you could buy second-hand gearboxes. At the end of the year, they'd sell a works car off at a reasonable cost. So, I mean, there's dozens of guys that bought ex-works cars, Peter Altersky, Etienne Lorenz, Berto Mostert, all those people. Volkswagen did it, Nissan to some extent. And when the manufacturers were involved, I mean, you had such big fields because they helped you. It was a hell days, yeah.
Okay.
Tony, newcomers who wants to get into the sport now, what would Tony tell a youngster these days who wants to get involved in a sport that pretty much represents your entire life?
First of all, go and serve a screw for somebody who's doing nationals. A lot of people did that. Frank Lindemann used to service for Johan Evertse. Adrian Karth came to service for me when he was 17 years old. Craig Trott serviced for me for 2 years on national, so he knew what the routine was. Get involved with some guy and pick his brains and steal ideas from his car. I mean, I told you earlier about the diff story. Now, if I'd been involved in rallying earlier, I would know that you have to have a high ratio diff. I didn't know that. Now, Jannie Habigs' son doesn't have to learn that because dad has, got the knowledge, and he'll make sure that the right parts are in the car. So his driving ability is tested, not school fees.
Yeah.
It's the way it is. I wish I'd been involved like Jürgen Fecken. I mean, he had Lambert Fecken, he had Harry Fecken, he had Rudolf Fecken. That all rubbed off. So he got like a jump start up when he started rallying, and they would all come on the rallies. I mean, Inzo Kun, he had his Christo Kun, and he was LB Odendahl used to be around. So all those people passed on the knowledge. So if I said to a youngster, when you want to rally, go and hook yourself up with a bully who's done the sport and learn, because that's the quickest way.
Yeah.
Paying school fees is not fun.
Yeah.
Believe me, it's not. But yeah, it's part of life, eh?
Tony, it's a bit of a curveball now, but that's good advice. But are there channels in South Africa through which these youngsters can actually get involved. It's easy to say they must get involved in a team as such. But are the clubs still strong enough? Is there some in your own province, Natal? You've got the oldest motoring club in South Africa, I believe, is in Natal. Are there still events and let's call it get-togethers type of thing where this type of information is shared and people can actually grow into the sport?
Pre-COVID days, it was going along, not great, but the COVID thing has really upset, and all the rules around COVID. So that hasn't helped. But if I discount the COVID side, we used to have get-togethers, we used to have rally sprints, and the spirit was still there. So we've got Paulo Gouveia, his son races at Skyline, Paul Gouveia rather, his son Paulo. So there are a few people coming in, but the cost is a problem. And the COVID thing has really knocked everything, well, business as well. But we carry on. What can we do?
Clint, you're sitting there with a big smile on your dial. It's an absolute pleasure chatting to a legend like Tony. But yeah, even if we can carry on all night, we do have to watch the time. We've already gone 20 minutes.
20 minutes over.
1 hour program. But Tony, it's great fun chatting to you, and I can carry on all night. I think we must think of our technical guy behind the scenes, who also has a family and has to sometimes
before curfew.
But I want to give you the opportunity, Tony, to just once again give us the absolute highlight of your rallying career.
Probably all the results on the Castrol Rally. I finished 10 out of the 15 that I did, and everyone was so satisfying. Probably the other one that sticks in my mind is a PE rally in '93. I'd had a terrible roll on the Castrol Rally 2 rallies previous. I went down the mountain, I injured my back, and I came back on the PE rally, and I won the class, and I just lit the stages alight. So getting the confidence back was a huge thing. So yeah, there's lots of rallies that stick out, but probably those two. The Castrol in '89 with the mud, was fantastic. I mean, getting basically on Hannes Krobler's tail in a little 1600 golf when he was in the Skyline. Well, it wasn't a fair competition because it was in mud, so it doesn't matter.
Something we haven't even touched on yet, and I would love to also touch on now. You did rallies in every kind of weather you can think of, and also you went through the era where rallies was essentially at night. We started late at night and finished the next morning. If you think about it today, which would you prefer? Night rallying, day rallying, mud, dry? Give us an idea as to, and of course you had front wheel drive and rear wheel drive. Now put that in all those situations and come up with your favorite combination.
Wait, that's quite a tricky one. I mean, front wheel drive was beautiful in some cases. Rear wheel drive was fun in other cases. The whole thing was in your mind. You had to, whatever the conditions, you had to say, well, it's the same for all of us. So we need to make a plan here and don't let it phase us out. That's what I said earlier about Martin Botha. He made such a difference to my rallying, just in one rally. It was a Pretoria Brick Rally in 1985, I think. We won our class. We came 8th overall. And I just had huge pace in the mud purely because Martin wouldn't take no for an answer, and he cut me out if I backed off too much. So it's the whole. Everyone played a part, And I think of all those people that organise those rallies, like Dieter Koch and Dave McGregor, Freddie Vrooman, Willie Duplessis, Robert Marley, Bill Bright. All those people gave us so much time so we could have fun. And I always appreciated what they did. I mean, I thought they did a fantastic job, and I could relate to it very well because I did rallies organised myself, so I knew how much work they put into a rally. Mile after mile of route survey, and scary.
It might not be of much importance to anybody else, but I have to give you credit for another aspect of your enthusiasm in the sport, because I don't know anybody else who has every video ever broadcast on TV on record as you have. and you have the result of every event you ever participated in. And why do I
Correct.
know that? Because I got the whole of Piers van der Koolwijk's 20 years of rallying in the Western Cape and posted the photographs on the Witzenberg Facebook page. You can go and have a look there. And most of the stats, most of the records there, the times and the positions, is thanks to this man's recording of all these events over the years. And the only sad part about it is you've got a bit of a selfish attitude with it because you're the only one that can see that, and we have to beg you for it every time we want to see something from it.
Well, I still got a VHS recorder here. I had a lot of rally tapes on, and I transferred them to CD. Yeah, so there is, and it's all categorized in a book. I think there's 115 CDs with rallies on them. This is apart from the pre-recorded ones that I've obviously got from overseas. And I still, if every now and then I just pull one out and I watch it, and it's fantastic just to reminisce. And yeah, that's the way it is.
Would you ever consider making a compilation of it?
Well, I've got them all compiled with each rally and what each video has got. But you know, the quality is not that great. You know, a lot of people would say it's poor quality, but you know, they were recorded on a VHS and the tapes got old, and you know, they jumped a bit. But it's some nostalgic stuff. You know?
No, maybe let me rephrase. Would you consider sharing it and making it available, going to the market, maybe at the price? Because I can tell you now, there's guys collecting these things, and it's invaluable.
I wouldn't want money for it because the sport has given me so much pleasure and, you know, the memories and great friendships. I actually wouldn't want money for it. I'd happy to, if someone had a facility, I could just put a CD on, load it, and off it goes. And obviously, I have every rally written down: 1985 tour, 86 Allowell North, 87. That's all written in this little book. So, you know, you can pick from that. Yeah, I wouldn't want money. The sport has been too good to me.
I think we're booking a plane ticket to Durban with a VHS machine.
Well, I actually have a DVD recorder, which you can't buy anymore, funny enough, because Mnet stopped the people importing them. Yeah. So I've got a DVD recorder, which I cross-tape. Listen, this thing is not going to any copyright police, is it?
No.
I've got lots of tapes that I've copied. I even bought one of those little devices that unscrambles the pre-recorded ones. Oh, I shouldn't say that, eh? I have the Competition Commission on me or something.
So, as a youngster on screen tonight, there's something for you or to aspire to for the future. I'm going to ask Tony to close down by saying or telling us how many kilometers of actual special stage rallying you have behind your name. In other words, not liaison sections, not driving on the open road. This is only flat out stage kilometers.
It's probably in excess of 130,000 kilometers.
Sure.
Yeah, I kept a total. You know, some years it was sort of 3,000-4,000 kilometers, and then other years obviously less. But it's about 130,000 stage Ks.
And that comes from how many rallies?
610. Yeah, some people like stats. The one stat I can't change is my 5'4".
Well, on that topic, in modern era of motorsport, it became more and more of an issue when you started talking weight. Now, if you're built like me, who's a bit of a boerklong, you've always had one serious problem in rallying. You're too big and too heavy. You never had that problem.
No, I hover around 68, 69 kilos.
Yeah, you had an additional problem. You couldn't see over the screen, over the dashboard.
I put a cushion there. That's fine. When I tested Jeff Sanders' car in 1991, he was staying at the Holiday Inn in Eastern Boulevard in Cape Town, and he wanted to sell the car. And I said, "I'm keen." And we took it out on the freeway for a ride, but I couldn't reach the pedal. So we took a couple of pillows from the Holiday Inn, put them behind me, and put them underneath me so I could see over the dashboard. I mean, it's only on the tar, so it wasn't like a stage, but I remember that clearly. It was 3 Holiday Inn pillows on the seat so I could see where I was going. And I bought the car. It was 45,000 Rand in those days, which was probably fair money. I thought it was good value. So, yeah, it was fun. But it's a one sport where the size doesn't play a part. I mean, I didn't really cut it in rugby or soccer or athletics or anything, but in rallying, the size didn't play a part. It was about you preparing your car and how seriously you wanted to overcome problems and challenges through a rally. And sometimes you thought, oh, what am I doing this for? This is not working. But you just fought through the pain barrier or whatever it was. And when the result came, well, it was very satisfying. It still is today.
Would you agree that some of your most satisfying events didn't come with a result, but rather the actions on the event made it very special?
I'll bore you with one little story on a total rally. We finished the stage and the gearbox packed up as we crossed the flying finish. So we dragged the car to the service point, but the service crew weren't there. They were waiting at another place. So I parked the car, and Jacques Buerta, Leon's son, he was there with his van. They'd retired. And I pulled the car up and I said, I need to get started on the gearbox. I sent a message through to the crew, get back here with the gearbox and I'll start stripping. And it was a spectator point, and people were standing around watching me and said, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to change the gearbox. I said, but with what? I said, no, the crew will come. So I undid everything up. Jacques helped me with some stands and a trolley jack. I had the car up. The only thing I hadn't got is a drive shaft spanner. And as I got everything loose, the starter motor out and all that with the spanners I had, and then the service crew arrived and we banged the gearbox in and off we went. And I have to say, the spectators were hovering around, and when I finished, they gave me a huge round of applause. They were actually gobsmacked. It was about 2:00 in the morning, and I got stuck in. I had Cherry Saunders navigating with me, so obviously she couldn't work on the car. But I did everything as fast as I could myself, and we were not time barred. I think we came 9th or 10th or something. I can't remember, but it was satisfying to see them all standing around and just saying. I mean, Colin Wendell said, "What are you going to do?" I said, "I'm changing the gearbox." He said, "But with what?" And I said, "Well, the crew are coming, and I'm not giving up until I'm time barred." So yeah, things like that. Good story for the pub and for memory.
Amazing.
I'm afraid I have to call it a night.
Yeah, I know. I'll go on all night, eh?
Yes.
last round to you, Clint. Question to Tony to close off with.
Yeah, so maybe not a question. I just want to say thank you. It's been a true honor to chat to you tonight. And I think what makes it special is your understanding of the sport from, as you said, from service crew to navigator to driver to running your own team. I think that it's a really special kind of person that does that. Because I'm not sure if you're married or if you had a wife, but obviously you were running 2 separate bank accounts.
in fairness, the 2 wives I had were very supportive.
Okay.
My first wife just even helped me change the gearbox. So I think when they got involved with me, they realized, well, love the man, love his dog, or something like that. You can't beat him, join him, something like that. But it's important. And I would say that the 2 wives I had were very supportive and encouraged me. And and I have a girlfriend at the moment who's also very supportive and comes from a motor racing family. So I'm on the right track.
Yeah. So in summary, huge respect to you, and thank you again. And it won't be the last that you see us. We're coming to document that all that videos. Yeah, for sure.
I would have no problem at all if I could have a simple facility where I could upload the videos. It would be more than a pleasure. I mean, they're wasted sitting in a cupboard, not being viewed.
I think
as long as people understand that the quality is not perfect,
no.
But it's the nostalgia stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But that makes it original. The hopping of the tape and all of that. So it really.
Robbie Wakeman did a wonderful job for SABC in those days. He had Jeremy Dawes commentating. We had a lot of stuff with Arthur Abrams on special stage that was on Mnet. So there's a lot of guys who've done a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, no, for sure. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and have a lovely time. I'm thirsty now, so I'm going to go and have a beer. It's 1 hour 34 minutes. I mean, will the man not shut up?
Well, Tony, I can also only add that it's been fantastic sharing many moments with you over the years. Tonight is special in the sense that I feel it's long overdue that you are credited as possibly the most successful privateer in South African rallying we'll ever see. And and more importantly, for being a great sportsman and a wonderful ambassador for a sport you all like. Thank you for that, and I certainly look forward to having you on the program somewhere in the future again.
Thank you very much, both of you, and the team at the back. It was huge fun. I've really had a wonderful 90 minutes. No, sorry, 90 95 minutes, yeah. But it was fun. I mean, it went past very quickly.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Lovely. Thanks, guys. Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you, Kyle, in the background for another fantastic program. And we look forward to speaking to you all next week when Clint and I will hopefully be bringing you some interesting news.
Yes, for sure. I look forward to next week.
Behind me is a collection of basically slot car rally cars.
Oh.
All makes: Audi, Opel, Ascona, Lancia Fulvia. These are all basically what people call Scalextric cars, but they're rally cars. And that's my collection behind me and a few rally pictures. So in case you wonder what all that stuff on the shelf was. So yeah, it's a drug. Eh?
Next time we get you on the program, we want you to stand next to your track and demonstrate a few of these cars in action.
Okay. Yeah, that's a disease, eh? Incurable, sorry. Thank you, guys. It was really fun.
Thank you, gentlemen. We'll speak again.
Okay, bye-bye.
We appreciate your support.